Tanse, nitotentic. My name is Cardinal. My Cree name is Sipigo Gisik, and that means blue sky. You will never know a person until you know their story. You cannot make peace and build harmony until you see yourself inside another's story. A city, therefore, cannot truly know itself or reach its full potential until it knows and cherishes its stories. All stories, the good, the bad, and sometimes the unbelievable. To leave a story untold is to leave behind your ancestors, to shun a part of yourself, to deny your inheritance, and to disconnect your spirit from the spirit of place. All across Canada, our greatest and largest cities have been built on and over the ancient gathering places of Indigenous nations. For example, Ottawa, the trading place; Toronto, the meeting place; and even here in Edmonton, our Pehonan, the waiting place. Each of these locations, Indigenous nations were attracted to, called to, if you will, by the land itself. Called to gather in the spirit of peace, friendship, and family, to celebrate, to trade, and to do ceremony. Our stories here in Edmonton are foundation stories. Before the forts and the trading houses and the city was built, Indigenous people gathered here. For at least 10,000 years, nations from across North America came here to this spot, just outside these windows, this gathering place, called to these nations. Our people met here, the Cree, the Blackfoot, the Dene, the Assiniboine, Shoshone, the Hopi spoke of this place as the land of ice. The Mohawk came here, the Mandan, the Sioux, the Arapaho, and many, many more. Oral histories of nations speak of this area as a part of their great migrations across Canada. Jared Diamond, in his book, Germs, Guns, and Steel, talks about Edmonton as the cradle of civilization in North America. When the Laurentide and the Rocky Mountain ice sheets opened and people crossed. But they didn't only come that way. They came from the east as well, and they came from the south. This place that we have here is filled and rich with stories. The Lenape talk about coming here and crossing and making their great journey, their epic migration across North America to wind up on the eastern seaboard of the United States. The Dene, the Navajo, the Apache peoples came through here on their way to the south. And the Ojibwa came here as well from the east, traveled through this territory. The Lenape people invented their written language, one of 5 indigenous written languages in North America. Olam Napi, their history man, sat perhaps on these very riverbanks and created that written system and their first book called the Wallam Olam, the Red Record, the Red Score. The fastest spread of human literacy comes out of this place. The Cree syllabics, when they were released from their lodges and their ceremonies, made their way quickly across the world to influence the blind writing system by Dr. Moon in England, the The first blind writing system utilized Cree syllabics as the basis of that system. It also was transferred to China, where the Cree syllabic system was used in the writing processes of tribal indigenous Chinese people as well. But when indigenous people met here, they met here with the notion and the spirit of what we called Huichituin, which directly translates into helping each other. But the connotation means relationship and relationships. That is what is at the essence, and that is the foundation of the spirit that percolates through this land, through our feet and into our hearts. It's a place where people have come for millennia upon millennia to trade, to do ceremony, and to celebrate, but also to learn from each other, to exchange knowledge, to exchange stories of who we are as brothers and sisters. This reveals the nature and the spirit of who we are as Edmontonians. It answers the question, why do we do what we do? Those traditions, when we gathered here, it was known as a medicine trading center. Indigenous people brought many kinds of herbs, the foothills of the Rocky Mountains directly west of us, in their refugia, hold plants and herbs and other medicines that can only be found there. They were brought here in trade, in that spirit of healing. And we see that spirit still alive today through the University of Alberta Hospital, the Mazankowski Heart Center, the Cross Cancer Institute, the Edmonton Clinic. That spirit of healing and medicine still resides here. We also came to share knowledge and wisdom with one another. That spirit still resides here. We have 5 post-secondary institutions. Some of the finest universities in North America are here, still trading in knowledge, still exchanging visions of the future. That spirit of helping each other is still alive and moves in all of our hearts. Edmonton's volunteerism is renowned. It's the only one of the very few places that I know where you have to get on a waiting list to volunteer. It's the birthplace of community leagues, that spirit of helping each other in your neighborhoods. It's a leader in recycling technologies. We're the only city now in the world that is developing biochar. I'll let you guys think about that for a while. But this great gathering place where many nations still gather in that spirit of celebration, trade, and ceremony, the many languages that we speak, and the practicing of many faiths. 96th Street, for example, comes out of this Pehonan, which is the street with the most churches in the world. Festival City, it speaks for itself. We are a city that knows how to celebrate. The Fringe, the largest fringe theater festival outside of Scotland, is here. So why the dark side? Many of our people still do not enjoy the benefits of what this city has to offer. But why? In speaking with elders and going into ceremony, we're told that we are not fully honoring the stories and paying the proper homage to the spirit of this place. It seems that we have also set false goals for ourselves in the sense that Edmonton will become the largest urban Aboriginal population in the next couple of years. Well, I've heard that for the last 10 years. But the fact is this, for many years already, we have had the largest urban Aboriginal population in Canada, based on this one fact, is that within a commuting distance of 1 hour from the city, the population of Indigenous people rises to 100,000 people. Yes, you are surrounded by Indians. But it's all good. So, what does an Aboriginal city look like? It's honoring those Indigenous stories throughout the city. It's a way of allowing us to see ourselves in this city's story that creates that sense of belonging. It's about cultural reflectivity through names, historical sites and places, and art. Also, developing a clear process of inclusive and participatory governance. And I say that because inclusion allows you to the table, but participation lets you order from the menu. Listening to the people, actively interacting and listening to the people and the stories that they have to answer. Because within these stories, when they are carefully unpacked, we find wisdom, we find direction, and we find possibilities. And within that, and within our city governance, we look to policies that create the space and give the direction for administration to make room for Indigenous people. But we've got some good starting points here in Edmonton. We have the 2005 Edmonton Declaration strengthening relationships between urban Aboriginal people and the city of Edmonton. We have the 2006 Edmonton Urban Aboriginal Accord Relationship Agreement and the Aboriginal Relations Office, the first of its kind in Canada. We have projects like the Fort Edmonton Indigenous Peoples Experience that will create and flesh out that Indigenous story being told by Indigenous people here. We also have just celebrated the agreement between the City of Edmonton and our urban Aboriginal elders in working on a project called Kitchiaski, which means good or sacred earth. It'll be Canada's first urban Aboriginal cultural and ceremonial land base. So, for me to finish, I would like to just remind you of two things. Is that the City of Edmonton has within its very name a very important message. And this message is Monto. M-O-N-T-O is one way of spelling it. Monto means the divine essence, the power of creation, the source, or if you're into Star Wars, the Force. But also let us learn from the name of Canada and the story that it contains in the name itself. Canada comes from our word in the Algonquian language, kanata. But that word comes from the word kanatan. Kanatan means a sacred, pure or clean place. When the first traders met the Europeans, they asked them, "What is this place?" And they said, Kanatan, Kanatan. But the word Canada, when it's shortened from Kanatan, means to make sacred, pure, and clean. That means that we are given a directive as each Canadians, and every time we see that word Canada, that in order to achieve sacredness and purity and cleanliness, our relationships need to be in order. That means we have to gather, celebrate, and trade with each other. Stories give us the power to see, to revision. It calls us to adventure and guides us to prepare these great gathering places for the new generations to come, so they can remember our stories and to create new ones. Greatness is created by and measured in story. So I beg all of you, leave no story untold. Hi.